The year is 2008. Gaming was undergoing one of the biggest overhauls it ever had. But just as games themselves were changing, so was the social atmosphere of tournaments and competitive events. This is the story of EVO 2008, a Smash tournament so controversial that Smash itself wouldn't be invited back on the main stage for another 5 years. Evolution, more commonly dubbed EVO, is a tournament series that has been running from 1996 until modern day. But remember, right now, we're back in 2008. In 2007, just 1 year prior, EVO invited Super Smash Bros. Melee to the big stage, and it was the biggest Melee tournament the world had ever seen up until that point, with 270 players present, which in 2007 was an almost incomprehensible turnout, one that wouldn't be beaten until 2 years later at Genesis. You see, Melee had been out since 2001, and at this point it was still the newest entry in the series. This was at a time where in competitive gaming, with the prime example being Call of Duty, a new game being released meant that you played the new game. There were some outliers, obviously. Games like Counter-Strike Source had a significantly lower skill ceiling than CS 1.6, so players mostly stayed with 1.6, but a new game is a new game. And despite its differences from Melee, people wanted to give Brawl a shot. And so, following the same logic, EVO decided to include Brawl as the next big Smash mainstage game instead of Melee. But spoiler alert, there's a problem. If you watched my Brawl stage list video, you already know what that problem is. The rule set. 3 stocks, best 2 out of 3, and a 5-minute timer. Items were on, including Smash Ball for some ungodly reason, set to medium. Only 10 stages were banned, with EVO claiming to get rid of the worst stages, but then keeping in several extremely questionable ones. People were pissed, and for good reason. That rule set is ass. But regardless of how people felt, this was EVO, the most prestigious tournament in the entire world, and people were going to compete. Now, in terms of the actual players for Brawl singles, there basically aren't any that you'd recognize from Melee. Justin Wong, FGC legend, was there, but he got eliminated from being chain grabbed into the Yoshi's Island walk-off. Amongst the sea of mostly unknown players, however, sat one very known player, one of the greatest Melee players of the golden age of Melee, Ken, the king of Smash.
Ken combo. Brilliant Ken combo.
Technically, at this time, his tag was Sephiroth Ken, and there was actually another Brawl player at EVO 2008 with the tag just Ken, but you get the vibes. This dude was the real deal, a genuine final boss archetype of player. And being the only person entered in Brawl with that high level of Smash expertise, it was expected to be a wash. But if it was, in fact, a wash, this video wouldn't exist. But it does, because of one man. Scanning over the 110 total entrants for Brawl, you wouldn't notice him. Or maybe you would, but not because you'd recognize him or his accomplishments. Rather, you might notice him because he wasn't a grown man at all. This was CPU, a 15-year-old, clearly out-of-place child on family vacation in Vegas with his parents and his brother. And no, they weren't on vacation to EVO, they just happened to be near the venue, so their parents let them hop into the bracket. But while other players like Ken were practicing fundamentals and playing the game from a strictly competitive standpoint, CPU and his brother, Skinny, played for the love of the game, for the love of Brawl specifically, and they used every single advantage that the format would let them. Arguably, they were the only ones that did. Although this was in 2008, so most of his tournament run wasn't video documented, CPU's strategy was simple and effective. Play defense, hard defense. He opted to go Rob, a new character in Brawl's roster, and one that spawns with its own item projectile. Throughout the grand finals against Ken, you can see CPU using the top to exploit Marth's lack of long range, using it to keep stage control and therefore item control. People say that this was a gimmick and would complain that CPU wouldn't win in an items off bracket, and to that I say, well yeah, duh, that's an entirely different game. For this tournament, it doesn't really matter what normal Smash tournaments were. He played this game with these rules to absolute perfection, a strategy to deny the player with the best neutral in the world any chance at fighting at neutral. It is a clear win condition. Hell, even Rob's final smash can be used anywhere on stage, making sure that he'll be able to capitalize on his final smash every single time he gets it.
Don't know what Martha's doing. And he's safe. Not so safe.
There's even a moment in Grands that illustrates this when Ken misses his final smash, because even Marth's final smash, critical hit, is based on fundamentals and a read.
This could be it.
Essentially, Marth is just a bad items on character, and CPU exploited that heavily. He made it to Grand Finals against Ken, the king of Smash, and then proceeded to item camp him for 3 games. Not a blowout, but a 2-1 victory in the reset, because yes, EVO Grand Finals were still only a best of 3 in Smash for some reason.
Smash ball combos and breaks it. Activate. Custom combo. Cyclops looks angry. Oh yeah!
But the interview with CPU and his brother, Skinny, on getyourtournament.com after the tournament is a forgotten goldmine of commentary from the winner. Now, keep in mind they were only 15 and 17 years old, respectively, but the entire interview is so unintentionally BM that it's comical. How many tournaments have you both been to aside from EVO? None. Did you both envision yourself doing so well, 1st and 9th place, or did you not care what place you got at the tournament? Well, I really wanted to place 1st, 2nd, or 3rd because I knew there was going to be a lot of money to be won, and any money that's won by playing a game you love is extra special. Hell yeah, I cared. I mean, shit, I play Brawl a lot. How much did you both practice prior to the tournament? Not too much. When you knew that you had to play Ken, what went through your mind? When I told my brother he had to play Ken, he said, I know, and instead he just continued playing fucking Guitar Hero on tour on his DS. It's comedy, man. Some of the parts of the interview do go into more detail about their preparation and strategy, talking about counter picks and ways of using items. One specific strategy they mentioned is the bumper, which has incredible kill power, and CPU actually used it to take an early stock in Grand Finals against Ken. In the interview, Skinny talks about how Ken would just throw it in the air, not realizing its kill potential. This is just an example of the difference in knowledge that determined the outcome of this set. Skinny talked about how he would take so many people to Electroplankton, for example, when he lost the first round, a stage that should have been banned for sure. CPU did end up winning over $700 and probably went home feeling like a 15-year-old millionaire, but this high didn't last long. He was essentially bullied out of the scene for this tournament and did go on to have any sort of Smash career afterwards, a byproduct of how intensely awful people were on the internet in 2008. People hated EVO 2008's rule set so much that they extended that malice towards the child who used the rule set to his advantage. Since the beginning of competitive gaming, people have always used every tool at their disposal to make it to the top.
Oh my... What? Wow!
And it just so happens that CPU's victory by these means made him the scapegoat for those who already disliked Brawl, a growing sentiment that would last throughout the entirety of Brawl's competitive run. Like I said at the beginning of this video, games themselves were changing, evolving alongside the social atmosphere of the competitive gaming culture. I think Melee is in contention for the greatest game of all time, and it didn't get to where it is entirely on its own. Brawl is more of a stepping stone in Melee and Smash in general's history, and I think that's a perfectly acceptable and honorable position to hold. In a roundabout kind of way, EVO 2008 acted as a catalyst for the competition between Melee elitists and Brawl elitists, a companionship, if you could even call it that would ultimately continue to benefit Smash over time, allowing Melee to continue to grow decades after release, hand in hand alongside Brawl, Smash 4, and Smash Ultimate. Brawl contributed to the greater competitive Smash scene while having a great competitive run of its own during its prime, and EVO 2008 was necessary for this distinction between the two games. Brawl at EVO 2008 acts as a checkpoint in competitive gaming history. It stands on its own as a tournament with the rule set so bad, so exploitable, that a child on vacation with his family could win the whole thing against the king of Smash in what is arguably the biggest upset in competitive gaming history. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning about the worst Smash tournament of all time, or one of them at least. Like and sub to the channel if you're enjoying the content, and like always, there's a lot more coming soon. See you later, cowboy.
EVO this year had items, and I was like, oh man, items. I love items, so I decided to go to EVO because I love items. Go easy on me.